Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Tom Kelly. This is Clean Cut Audio, and in this week's video, we're going to talk yet again about output, negative 16 LUFS, compression, vocal rider, all of these things because there is still so much confusion that this topic cannot be over discussed. All right, let's do it. If you haven't yet seen my longer video on how I use Vocal Rider and my intro to compression, I would highly encourage you to watch both of those videos. I'll put links in the descriptions and you can check the cards in the top right of your video. It's important to lay the foundation for what we'll be talking about in this episode. Most podcasters are familiar with the phrase negative 16 LUFS. We know that that is the target we're trying to hit when doing our final bounce, our final export of the podcast. This is the broadcast loudness standard we are trying to achieve, negative 16 LUFS. Now, that is only a part of the equation, and it seems to be the only part that people are really familiar with. There's another factor that may be even more important, and that is the loudness range. Now, I do want to say that for the past year or so in these videos, I have been kind of improperly referring to this as dynamic range, the difference between the loudest and the softest portion of your audio. It's technically incorrect because dynamic range is measuring the very short term, the peak voltage amplitude. And what we're really talking about here is the loudness range, which is a much longer term averaging. And the devil is in the details. We need to get these terminologies correct because it's important. Semantics are very important in audio production. So I want to thank you, the person that pointed that out to me. I've been talking kind of incorrectly for the past year. I do apologize, but again, I'm really grateful that all of you are here on this journey of learning alongside me. I am not the person that has all the answers and knows absolutely everything. I'm doing my best just like all of you are, but we're going to be referring to this, the difference between the loudest and the softest portions, as loudness range for now on. The important thing to know about LUFS and measuring in this kind of longer term averaging loudness is that it's just that, it's an average. Let's just say we're trying to hit an average of 50, an arbitrary number 50 throughout our entire podcast. Now, if we're trying to find an average, I don't think the math works out this perfectly, but we could have the first half of our episode at a 1 and the second half at a 99, and we're still going to hit that average of 50. We don't want half of our podcast to be at a 1, the other half at a 99. We can also do 25 and 75, half and half. That gets us an average of 50. We can also do 45 and 55. The average of those two numbers is 50. This is kind of very, very plainly representing loudness range. We don't want portions in the audio that are super loud and then super quiet, then super loud. That is the fastest way for you to lose listeners. No one wants to be turning up and down and up and down and up and down their audio. That is a very bad experience. No listener is going to have the patience for that. So today we're going to be looking at some examples of the same track mixed 4 different ways so that all of them have a negative 16 LUFS output, but we're going to listen to how different each track is. So in Pro Tools, I have my co-host who, Pat, I love you to death. Never change anything. He's a dynamic speaker. Some people are. There's not really much to change. I mean, we've had conversations about, do you sacrifice the performance for the technicalities, for the mic technique, yada, yada. There's different schools of thought, but basically I'd rather control the dynamics and the loudness on my end rather than have him be less funny or entertaining or sincere because he's too worried about speaking at an average volume. I can try to take care of that in post. That is famous last words. We'll fix it in post, but this is one situation where that's kind of okay. So we're going to listen to these 4 tracks here. And what we're going to look at is, first of all, notice the waveform on all of them. This represents amplitude of voltage. We can see in the waveform, which is a representation of the amplitude of the voltage. We have a pretty soft portion. We've got a medium portion here, a very loud, and then a return to medium. And let's take a listen. I've boosted this 17.2 decibels. And hopefully you're in a quiet environment when you're listening to this. You can really appreciate the nuance of what's happening here. But I'm going to reset this LUFS meter here and take a listen to how this sounds.
I can't wait to do the Saying Anything self-titled album episode at some point. Just, it might be self-indulgent. I don't know how many. If you tweet at us if you like it, because we were dying to do that one. I can't wait to do the Saying Anything.
All right, so we have a long-term output. Before I hit play again, it was negative 16.1 LUFS. That's pretty spot on. Listen to it again and notice how inconsistent the loudness is.
I can't wait to do the Saying Anything self-titled album episode at some point. Just, it might be self-indulgent. I don't know how many. If you tweet at us if you like it, because we were dying to do that one. I can't wait.
Okay, so we got negative 16 LUFS as a long-term average and a loudness range of 9 LUFS, loudness units. 9 is a lot. That's pretty big. I don't know what the exact conversion is, but in terms of decibels, a 10 decibel difference is, to your ear, twice as loud. So that's big. That's a really big range. We need to control that because that's not a really pleasant listening experience. We're still hitting negative 16. If all you know is negative 16, you think you nailed it, but you didn't. So the next thing I can do here is kind of automate this. Now, I chose to automate it with clip gain rather than writing automation, but we can see that the waveform looks a little more even because I was adjusting it with clip gain here, and it changes the representation of the waveform. I boosted this part 6 decibels. This is lessened by a half a decibel. This is unchanged, and then this loud portion I brought down 5 decibels. So now we can listen to this and take a look at our loudness meter over here on the right.
I can't wait to do the Saying Anything self-titled album episode at some point. Just, it might be self-indulgent. I don't know how many. If you tweet at us if you like it, because we were dying to do that one.
Now we have a long-term output of negative 16 LUFS in a range of 2. This was a much more pleasant experience because it wasn't up and down and up and down. It wasn't blasting out your car stereo as you're cruising down the highway, trying to hear those low parts, and then you get hit with those really big peaks right here. But the problem is, if we're doing an hour-long episode, we don't want to have to be fine-tuning all these little things and, writing in automation and trying to get, that maybe needs to go down. That's how everyone wastes their time. And that's a big complaint I see. It takes too long to automate all this stuff. Now, this is kind of where I spoke about Vocal Rider in that past video. I use that to control the loudness of the podcast. It kind of is like automatic automation. And I mentioned in that video, it was only part of the story. Well, about 10 months has passed and I haven't continued that story. So here we are today. So now in this third track here, what we have is the same signal as what we have on the top, the raw signal, and just one compressor on it. I have an API 2500 up here in the top right corner with a threshold of -5 decibels, a medium attack time, 0.3 of a millisecond, a 6-to-1 ratio, which is a little heavy-handed, and a very fast release time. I'm also adding 8.1 decibels of makeup gain because it's going to be trimming off some of the loudness on the top, so we want to reintroduce it back into the signal so that we're not missing anything. What we're going to hear is it's not going to do much for this portion here. It's going to trim a little bit in this middle, and then it's going to overcompress the hell out of this peak here. And we're really going to hear that. It's one stage of compression, really cutting these peaks and not doing a ton for the rest. So let's listen to this portion here and take a look at our WLM meter from Waves.
I can't wait to do the Saying Anything self-titled album episode at some point. Just, it might be self-indulgent. I don't know how many. If you tweet at us if you like it, because we were dying to do that one.
All right, so again, same thing. We have -16 LUFS as a average loudness in a range of 6 LUFS. And this is because for this portion here, this is all under the threshold. So it's not cutting anything down there, and whatever makeup gain we have is not doing enough to really bring any of this up to a good average. So what we can do is, let's fiddle with this. Let's make our threshold quite a bit higher, so it's going to cut more off, and we're going to also increase the makeup gain. This is going to compress it even more. This probably isn't going to sound very good, but we're going to try to get a more even signal. The same long-term output with a smaller range. Let's take a listen, and I'll make some adjustments as we go.
I can't wait to do the Saying Anything self-titled album episode at some point. Just, it might be self-indulgent. I don't know how many, if you tweet at us if you like it, because we were dying to do that one.
All right, so that was a little bit too loud. Let me pull this off a bit and let's do it again.
I can't wait to do the Saying Anything self-titled album episode at some point. Just, it might be self-indulgent. I don't know how many, if you tweet at us if you like it, because we were dying to do that one.
All right, so that's pretty close. We're 0.4 LUFS off, but you can hear that that was really squashed. The compression on that was really heavy-handed. So in order to take one LU, one loudness unit off of our range, we had to really overcompress this signal. And you can hear it again, as I said I think I said it in one of the compression videos. If it's overcompressed, it's like you have this voice that you're trying to fit into this container, but the container is too small for it. And it's like seeping out of the edges, trying to get out, but the compressor is just keeping all that signal to itself. It's keeping it all confined. So this one stage of compression might not be enough. So this is where I use a combination of vocal rider and two different types of compression. What I have here on this bottom chain is pretty similar to what I do for most of my podcasts. So let's get all these to the same height, the same reference point. So this is the same track as the one above, which is the same track as the one up top. Now, to save us time to where I'm not doing this clip gain thing where I'm manually adjusting it, I'm using vocal rider to boost this signal, and then it shouldn't be doing anything for this portion because I have my target set on vocal rider. So when it goes above that, it's not going to boost the signal anymore. It's going to lay off. And then my two stages of compression are each going to gently take care of those peaks so that we end up with negative 16 LUFS, a smaller loudness range, and something that doesn't sound over-processed and over-compressed. So I'm going to try to take a look at all of these plugins here, and I'm actually going to try to print all these later on. I might need to fly through that to reduce the length of this video, but let me get all three of these plugins up on the screen here. Oh gosh. We're going to be covering something up. So I'll put these in the order of which they are happening. We have Vocal Rider first. We have the CLA2A, modeled off the LA2A hardware compressor by Teletronics, one of my favorite compressors of all time. And then the API 2500, modeled after the hardware API 2500. Another absolutely beautiful stereo bus compressor. I love this thing. So each of these, again, is doing their own small part. As they say in Letterkenny, more hands makes less work. So each of these channels is doing like a third of a job, so none of them is overperforming. And that's really what we want here. Again, we want to limit that loudness range without you really hearing what's going on. You don't want to hear the compression. You don't want to hear the automation. It might go right past some listeners and they won't even notice what's happening, but it's not good audio. So we're trying to not over compress by adding two stages of compression with some automation in front of all of that. And that makes it so we can see here actually that the compressor we had before, in order to try to hit negative 16 LUFS, the same API 2500, our threshold was at negative 8 decibels, which is screaming. That's pretty high. So on our gentler compressor, because there's one before it, we're at a pretty steady 0 decibels. So it's not, that's like 8 decibels that we're not compressing that we were before, but we're going to hopefully end up at the same target loudness. So I've got the right track soloed. No, I don't. Let's listen to this third stage here. See what we got.
I can't wait to do the Saying Anything self-titled album episode at some point. Just, it might be self-indulgent. I don't know how many, if you tweet at us if you like it, because we were dying to do that one.
All right, so the same thing as my dog barks upstairs. We hit negative 16 LUFS as a long-term average. We have a range of 2 LUFS. I kind of heard something a little bit in the middle there. I think that had to do more with Vocal Rider. So let's see if we can adjust that.
I can't wait to do the Saying Anything self-titled album episode at some point. Just, it might be self-indulgent. I don't know how many, if you tweet at us if you like it, because we were dying to do that one. I can't wait to do the Saying Anything self-titled album episode at some point. Just, it might be self-indulgent. I don't know how many, if you tweet at us if you like it, because we were dying to do that one.
All right, so that was a little bit better, and we didn't hear a whole ton going on. We probably heard some boosting right here as Vocal Rider was adding like 10. Is that decibels on our rider here? I think that represents decibels. And so it's boosting this portion, so our compressors aren't really doing anything. And then the Vocal Rider isn't doing anything from here on, and the compressors are slowly taking the hit from these peaks. And what we have here with the 2 compressors is this first LA2A is going to be a faster attack, faster release, and it's going to add some color and some tone that I really enjoy. And it is it's a pretty subtle compression. I believe it's around 3 or 4 to 1. And we can see here if we bypass our API 2500.
It might be self-indulgent. I don't know how many, if you tweet at us if you like it, because we were dying.
So it's never really hitting more than 2 decibels here.
Tweet at us if you like. It might be self-indulgent. I don't know how many, if you tweet at us if you like.
So it's not doing much work. I think on this first track here with the API, we were cutting like 8-10 decibels at points with the compression, and it was a whole lot. So now we're going to have a big volume change because the makeup gain coming from the 2500 here. But now we can see that this 2500 isn't really cutting a whole ton because it has its buddies before it lifting some of the weight.
It might be self-indulgent. I don't know how many, if you tweet at us if you like it, because we were.
So that's never really hitting more than 4 decibels. So by doing this in stages, we are compressing a lot less, but we're getting a better result. It is a really good loudness range, and it's still negative 16 decibels. Let's listen to all 4 of these really quickly back to back so we can hear in rapid succession what's really going on here. So I'm going to play all 4 without interruption. I'm going to turn the meter off. We know they're all negative 16. Let's just listen. I'm going to black out the screen. Let's close our eyes and listen.
I can't wait to do the Saying Anything self-titled album episode at some point. Just, it might be self-indulgent. I don't know how many, if you tweet at us if you like it, because we were dying to do that one. I can't wait to do the Saying Anything self-titled album episode at some point. Just, it might be self-indulgent. I don't know how many, if you tweet at us if you like it, because we were dying to do that one. I can't wait to do the Saying Anything self-titled album episode at some point. Just, it might be self-indulgent. I don't know how many, if you tweet at us if you like it, because we were dying to do that one. I can't wait to do the Saying Anything self-titled album episode at some point. Just, it might be self-indulgent. I don't know how many, if you tweet at us if you like it, because we were dying to do that one.
So it's important to know that we don't have to do all of this in one step. A lot of people confuse negative 16 LUFS with you have to overcompress something in order to get it to that loudness, or negative 16 loudness is it. That's the end of the equation. There's so much more than just that. The range is very important because, again, what we're trying to fight is listeners having to keep turning up and turning down the audio. That's like a super bad experience. It's the most frustrating thing in the world. Imagine every time when you watch TV and those commercials are like so much louder than the show. Who pays for cable television anymore? But you know what I mean? It's super bothersome. And in podcasts, when there's not proper compression, it's like those commercials are coming on and turning off every 5 seconds, and it's constantly up and down and up and down, and it's the worst. I think it's the worst thing you can do in a podcast because it's the most annoying. It's the fastest way to lose your listeners. So negative 16, hit that. Really pay attention to the loudness range and pay attention that you're not over compressing your signal. And it sounds counterintuitive, but 1, 2, or 3 compressors can actually be less audible, less over compressed than just one compressor doing a lot of work. Because it's like if you've got a really heavy log you have to pick up. It's easier to pick up with 3 friends because each of them has to do a third of the work. So that's what we're really trying to do here with multiple stages of compression. That's what I do with Vocal Rider for just the boosting, and then the compressors are cutting, and the 2 of them work together super well to get the job done discreetly, transparently, and give the listeners a good experience. I hope that was helpful to you all. I get questions all the time trying to expand on the Vocal Rider video, which is my most watched video to date, which is kind of unfortunate. It was meant to be a test of a webcam that I bought. It's the worst looking video. It's the only one I'm not wearing the jacket in, and it's also the only one with a webcam I have upgraded since that test video. So it kind of bothers me that that's the one everyone's watched, but hey, whatever. The 3 compressors that I used in this video, there will be an affiliate link where you can get 10% off from Waves. They are a very great manufacturer of plugins. They run these huge sales all the time. It's like every other day something is on a huge sale. So definitely check those out. And if you haven't heard the podcast yet, there is a podcast called Clean Cut Audio. It's going to be complementary to the YouTube channel, slightly different, not covering the same things every week, but definitely check that out, cleancutaudio.com/podcast. And if you haven't seen them yet, I do have my web store open right now with a couple different pretty fun audio for podcasting t-shirts. You can check out cleancutaudio.com/shop. And please subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you don't miss any episodes. I think this kind of information is very important, and a lot of people are not covering this kind of stuff. So I am very, very happy to work super hard to try to get you videos like this every single week. It takes a lot of time every single week between the videos and the podcast. I'm spending maybe 10 or 15 hours a week producing these unpaid, right? Just trying to get some good information out there. If you have any topics you'd like me to cover in future videos, please leave it in the comments. I'm happy to make a video specifically for you, because if you have an issue, it's pretty much guaranteed a ton of other people have the same issue, and I will find the answers for you and make a video or a podcast on it. So that is all for this week. Thank you so much for sticking around, and I'll see you later. Bye.